And I'm Vinny, and this is Learn Real Good.
We're back.
Back to attack.
2022.
I think all of these episodes are going to come out in 2022.
I know, but
we're recording now.
This is the first one we're recording, and this is going to be towards the end of our second season.
We really don't have a veil of secrecy or mystery for the show. We tell you everything that's happening.
Why would there be?
People like a mystery. Who are they? Where are they? When are they?
Well, we already disclosed that. It's 2022.
And we're in Montreal.
What's your New Year's resolution, Vinny?
I don't usually do New Year's resolutions, but I could come up with one.
You are an improviser, so how about you?
Yeah, I can make up one
for the sake of
I'm going to read
podcast.
all the comic books.
I like that you do it small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all the comic books that have ever been printed, but only the comic books that come out this year. I'm going to read all of the comic books that come out this year.
Of all genres?
Sure, why not? I'm making this up.
Sounds achievable.
Yeah. I haven't read a comic book since I was like 10.
Okay.
But you know what? For I think, it's a reasonable comic book goal. I don't know how many comic books come out every year. Probably a lot. It probably seems quite unreasonable now that I'm thinking about it.
It's absolutely. I thought you knew how unreasonable that was when you announced it.
I'll try.
Okay. Well, good. I applaud your efforts and I wish you the best.
How about you? What are your New Year's resolutions?
My New Year's resolution is the same one it's been since I was about 10.
Okay. How's it going?
And that is to be more assertive. Well, as you know, that's something I struggle with.
Right. Well, we both do.
Yes,
we're both very passive.
We are.
Yeah.
We're too nice.
I don't think nice is the problem.
No, I know. No. We don't want to be a bother.
We don't want to be a bother.
Thing.
Yeah.
No,
we're terrible with boundaries.
Yeah. Making decisions is a gift, as you learn from improv.
Yeah, for sure.
We are not good at that.
Unless it's in a pretend world in improv, I can do it.
Yeah.
But in the real world where there are consequences.
Real decisions.
It's tough.
Not happening.
No.
Yeah, that's my go-to.
Well, my go-to is reading all the comic books now.
Well, I've learned that now.
Well, we just started the new tradition.
And
it's great.
Learning is the topic of this podcast.
I learned a lot.
We're only getting started.
I'm done.
For all those learners out there, you new learners, the way this show starts is we shoot the crap as we just did. Did it.
Done. Check.
And then we're going to share facts, fun science facts that we've discovered before the podcast, but haven't shared with each other yet.
No.
And then we have our special guest who's going to talk about their work, and I'm so excited about this one.
I love that part.
Yes. Well, that's the highlight. You got to build up to it.
I like talking to you too.
Well, this is awkward because I've clearly
said it's clearly not the highlight. Prefer the guest. That's fine.
Yes. Well, we've done our chatting.
Well, do you have a science fact, or do you want me to do this?
I absolutely do. Should I go for it?
Yeah, hit me.
So this is what I've seen on a bunch of platforms. This is new research just come out.
I love it.
And it's real super cool. So babies, talking babies today.
Baby talk.
Goo goo gaga. They can tell who's closest related to them based on saliva.
Now, I have a lot of questions right away.
Yeah. So they watch caregivers and individuals who caregivers are assorting with for behaviors that share saliva. So sharing food. If I take a spoonful of food and then I give you a little spoon, which is it's not something we do. Or kissing, right? Any sort of contact that has saliva exchanged tells the baby that is a close relative. And so if they need something, so if the baby starts crying and has a need that needs to be met, they will look towards that individual who may not be related to them, but has been demonstrated as being close based on saliva contact.
How are babies getting samples of everybody's saliva?
No, they're watching. They're watching for behavior when you share saliva, and that tells them this is someone I can trust because they are closely related to me.
So if a baby sees two adults sharing saliva and one of them is trusted, that trust is passed on.
Yes.
It's trust, saliva communicable trust.
Yeah, because it's close. It shows closeness.
Wow. And
so what's cool is in the study, they tested a bunch of behaviors. So things like playing games and other sort of things that might suggest a relationship and closeness. And it was the behaviors that had saliva that were closely associated with that.
That's fascinating.
Isn't that cool?
Babies love saliva.
I mean, it makes sense, right? You don't share saliva with someone. I mean, now in a not quite post-COVID world, I couldn't dream.
Mid-COVID world.
A mid-COVID world. I'm not going near anyone's saliva, including my own. I don't trust. Saliva can't be trusted, baby.
You're just constantly spitting saliva everywhere.
I'm trying to get rid of my own saliva. Yeah. It's not like I'm trying to contaminate. It keeps coming back.
Yeah, you seem to keep generating more. It's like fingernails and hair.
go. Notoriously the three things that keep accumulating.
Yeah.
Saliva,
Fingernails,
hair. That's it. The trifecta. That's my fact.
That's a great
cool,
fact.
Right?
That's amazing.
Good job, babies.
Good work, babies.
How about you? I've heard rumors that you have a fact.
Oh, well, rumor on the street is I do.
Okay, let's have it.
So mine is about, now you may not know this, but there's a rover on the moon. We all know about the rovers on Mars, but there's a rover on the moon.
And how long has this rover been on the moon?
It's been there for 3 years.
Okay.
Well,
so
2.5.
Newish, not like
Newish.
the 60s.
Newish. No, it hasn't been. I mean, there are old rovers on the moon from the 60s, but this one's relatively new. It was sent up by China. It's called the U-2, number 2.
Okay.
So the first U-2 was sent up like in 96 or something like that. And then they're like, okay, we're going to do a next generation, and then sent it to the moon.
Wow.
And basically it's on the far side of the moon. So they sent it to the side we can't see because, well, that's just more interesting. And it was in the like news recently, the space news community. Because one of the pictures that it took, it looked like on the horizon there was like some kind of cube. And everyone's like, whoa, a cube on the far side of the moon. And so they're like, all right, let's go take a look.
Was it a cube of cheese?
And it rolled over to this cube.
Yeah.
It was just a rock with funny shadows. So there are no cubes on the moon. There's no statues of faces or anything like that. It's all just artifacts of light and how photos work. But what's really interesting, this is the new stuff. The news is that the far side of the moon has sand, or the surface, which is much stickier than the near side of the moon.
Stickier?
Yeah.
What makes sand sticky?
That's a great
Clay?
question. No. Well, so it's not sand technically, because it's really just rocks. It's all one big rock. And what makes the surface of the moon sandy or gritty is impacts. And the visible side of the moon has had more impacts than the far side of the moon. I don't know why that is. Someone probably does. But the far side of the moon just generally has fewer impacts than the visible side of the moon. And what that does is the more impacts you have, the finer the sand. Okay. And so because this is less fine and more irregular, it sticks together more. Like kind of like jigsaw puzzle pieces. It gets like tangled together. Whereas smoother rock doesn't stick together. It just turns into like fine dust and it falls down. It's a big problem when they were landing on the moon. It was hard to close things, and the sand was really sticky, and it was very fine. Even static electricity was getting this dust to stick to the astronauts, and the doors are hard to close. But so this rover is discovering that the far side of the moon has much clumpier, and the sand on the moon has a name. It's called regolith.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's called regolith. Regolith.
And I've heard they're looking to isolate this sticky sand for use as kitty litter on Earth. Is that correct?
No. Because kitty litter needs to be absorbent, and this is just pure rock. For cat enthusiasts out there, they would be very disappointed to use regolith as
You can
kitty
sell
litter.
that, though, even if it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, you can sell anything to anybody. It's all marketing. Moon litter for your space-age kitty.
It's funny picturing a moon gift shop for the NASA to make more money.
They would just sell bits of the moon. Well, there's this famous
you
story
could do
of
that.
this couple who worked at NASA, and they stole rocks from the moon.
No.
And they took it to their hotel and made love on it.
Ew.
Because they wanted to make love on moon rocks.
I mean, they were made for each other.
Definitely. But that's like that's a weird crime to commit.
I guess they were over the moon.
For each other?
For each other.
That's a good one.
Is it? I was trying the whole time when you were talking about the moon to make a U2 joke. I was going to say, did they get vertigo?
Right, yeah. Oh, that's
know.
also good.
I mean, didn't say it though, did I?
Anyway, so yeah, there's a funky Chinese rover going around trundling to making discoveries on the far side of the moon.
There's so much happening out there.
There's a lot happening.
It's amazing that not more things crash all the time.
Yeah.
Well, it's time for us to crash into the guest portion of the podcast.
Perfect.
Segue.
Smooth.
Thank you. I'm known for my smoothness. This week, we have Victoria Heath, who is currently a lab manager for Dr. Trevor Pitcher's lab at the University of Windsor. Her master's degree was also obtained at the University of Windsor in Dr. Higgs' lab and was on the behavior of sea lamprey when exposed to sound. She has been in a total of 3 different fish biology labs and 2.5 different fish research stations. We need to. I've got some follow-up questions on that.
I love fractions of whole objects.
She loves to grow veggie plants and shiitake mushrooms and watch all the classic movies she can find. Please join me in welcoming Victoria Heath to the podcast. Victoria, come on down.
Hello, happy to be here. I figured the 2.5 might throw you for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's not mince words. Let's hop right to that. How can you be in 2.5 fish research stations, Victoria?
That is an excellent question. Well, 2 of them I actually did a project in, and the third one I sort of showed up, and other people were doing experiments, and I was like, hey, you want some help? So I was there for like maybe a day, and they were like, sure, we need extra hands, and I was like, here we go. So I was like, well, does it really count? I don't know.
Wow, I like that. I like
Very
the being so bold as to just show up.
Yeah, and start helping. People need more helpers.
Was that your intent when you showed up? You're like, maybe they need help, or were you, breaking in? What was? Why were you there?
Well, I didn't know there was an experiment going on at the time. I was just sort of visiting to check it out. Cool. And then, you sort of walk into a building and you're like, see a bunch of tanks on the ground filled with fish doing behavior experiments. And you're like, sure. Yeah. Where can I help?
Amazing.
I'm sure they were so happy to have you.
Yeah, there's never a shortage of things to do.
Absolutely. Wow, I'm very excited. Sea lamprey. Vinny, do you know what a sea lamprey is?
I know what a lamprey is, and I assume they mostly live in the sea, so I have a vague idea. But I'm going to leave it to the expert to explain more.
Yeah, Vicky, why don't you tell us a bit about sea lampreys as a creature first off?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, Vinny, is that sea lamprey are technically from the sea, but because they sort of migrated into the Great Lakes, they are now adapted to live their entire lives in the Great Lakes. Oh. So the sea part of sea lamprey is kind of misleading just for the invasive sea lamprey that are only in the Great Lakes. Wow. So that's interesting.
So now they're freshwater lamprey.
Freshwater sea lamprey, kind of oxymoron, but yeah.
No salinity boundaries lamprey.
It's a mouthful.
Yep.
As are they. You should see their mouth.
Right.
Am I right?
My favorite thing to do is tell people, do you know what sea lamprey is? No, please Google a picture of them.
Yeah, it's just if an animal was just teeth, it would be the sea lamprey.
Yeah, thankfully I'm like, well, how do I describe them? They're sort of like a giant leech, sort of like a baseball bat sized leech. And people are like, oh God. I'm like, yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah. If a baseball bat came out of your nightmares, that's what a sea lamprey would be.
Yeah, and they're super ancient, right? Lamprey, they're relatives of ours, but they're ancient.
Yeah, so they don't have jaws, which means they're like way far distantly related to us.
Yeah.
So how did you get to studying lamprey? Not the most photogenic creature. How did you come to love them?
They're not in the centerfold of Marine Monthly.
Hard to get people to care about them, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's true.
They're like a really big deal in the Great Lakes right now because they're invasive. And again, they're like giant leeches, so they just sort of catch on to any fish swimming by.
Yikes.
And then they leave these like sort of giant wounds in the fish, and those wounds can get infected and then kill the fish. So they're kind of a big deal. So yeah, my supervisor came up to me and he was like, hey, we have this experiment that's really interesting with sea lamprey. And I was like, cool, sign me up. Interesting, weird fish. That's totally in my books.
So sea lamprey, they used to be a marine type thing, thus the name. How the heck did they get to the Great Lakes? That's not where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, so people think that they came by ship. We still don't know a bunch, and it's sort of like, they showed up in the 40s. Oh, maybe the 30s, maybe the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So it's sort of like, and now it's just sort of like, if we can just get them out, that would be great.
Yeah, that's the bigger question.
Yeah, so that's where my project came in, and they were like, well, we have all these chemicals that we can use that works most of the time. And my project was like, well, can we sort of use their behavior to sort of push them out of sensitive areas? So we were like, hey, sound, we can just play sound really loud in rivers and streams and hopefully push them out of areas that they're not in yet or they already are and try and control them a bit.
Cool.
Yeah, so tell us more about that. One, how did this idea come up? And then two, what kind of sounds do sea lamprey hate?
Hard rock.
Or soft jazz.
Oh, soft jazz, I didn't actually think of, but that's like one of the first questions people ask me is like, oh, well, what did you play them? Did you do like AC/DC? And I'm like, no, it's not that exciting yet.
Right.
But yeah, the experiment was we're in a sound lab that I worked in. That's the Higgs lab, and they were like, oh, sea lamprey sound, let's do this. So they basically would swim upriver, and then I would like play really loud tones, which is kind of boring. It's just no sound at all, just me, and then see if it sort of got them to turn around. So that was my experiment, and just like all experiments, it sort of worked and didn't work, because it turns out that like if you blast sound at them really loud, they'll do one of two things. They'll either freeze or they'll like swim really fast and they'll just go as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So it might actually work better to use like rock music because then it's like changing of shifting tones. So they're like, oh my god, I have no idea what's happening over there. Rather than a tone, they're like, oh, I'm used to it, now I can swim fast.
And do you have any ideas like what's the sea lamprey thinking when it hears? Does it think the sound's like a ship? Is it just evolutionarily it's built
sound.
to hate? Yeah. Why is this a deterrent at all?
Yeah, well, if it was like a really quiet sound, because we just use tones, so it would sort of sound maybe like rainstorm or like actually water moving. So because anthropogenic sound, which is like the boat noise, that's what most people use. But with using tones, you basically try to turn it up as loud as possible. So
it's just the volume doing the work.
Yeah, so like doing it at like 170 decibels.
Whoa.
Underwater. Yeah, like we can hear it like above water. We can hear it, and having it that loud, playing to the fish, hopefully gets them to be like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to be here. This is abnormal.
Right.
So it's hard to determine exactly why. It could be anthropogenic and they're just like no, or it could be like something new and they're just like, I don't want to be near this new scary thing.
No kidding. And at that volume, is there any danger of like harming any other of the species that are floating around down there?
So that was one of the problems that we're hoping to do in another experiment, is that it could possibly impact other species swimming up. But lamprey are actually nocturnal, so they actually only swim up rivers at night. So yeah, we can avoid all the fish that are swimming upriver during the day. So it's not perfect, but it's better.
It's like putting the party club at night down there and then keeping the neighbors who are like hanging out during the day at bay. Or I guess the other way around.
Vinny, if you were to think of an annoying song to deter a lamprey, what song do you think
Sandstorm.
it would be? Sandstorm. That's a good one.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah, I was thinking All Star by Smash Mouth.
I mean, part of the All Stars disappeal is the video, which is a ridiculous video. So, I think if it's purely sonic, I'm gonna go Darude's Sandstorm.
Okay, we have some suggestions for your next try.
And for the lamprey, we can get them to fill out a survey or something.
Yeah, I'm still voting for the song of me just screaming into a mic as loud as I can.
Yeah. Go away! Now, do they have any predators who make sounds that you could play?
Well, so that's the other interesting thing, is that people are like, well, is it predators? But they don't have a ton of predators. Like there's stuff that eats them, especially eating their dead bodies. I don't know how to say that lightly, but but there's not a lot of things that like eat them when they're alive, because they're very slippery and slick, so it's quite hard to catch them, and then they don't have a ton of meat on them. I'm getting into the details, but basically they don't have a lot.
They're mostly teeth.
Oh, so gross.
Yeah,
it's a pretty gross animal.
Yeah,
it's slippery, it's ugly, it's more than ugly, it's nightmarish. It's really like from like beyond the realm of the elder gods.
There should be more horror movies about lampreys and hagfish. Honestly, it's undertapped.
And just to add to your nightmares, they actually have like a suction cup mouth. So if they do grab a hold of you, they are not letting go.
It's amazing. Great
Oh no,
work.
has that happened to you, Victoria? Have you been lampreyed?
It happened to me once, but it was on purpose, because they were like, you're gonna be working with this fish, so we don't want you to be scared of it. And then they were like, so we're just going to put it on your skin and pull it off, so you know that's the worst that will happen.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, no problem. I was just thinking like an actual suction cup. But because they actually do have teeth, you can feel it. It doesn't hurt a ton. I was not horribly maimed or anything, but they just sort of put it on and took it off. But those things are hard to get like off. It's a serious suction cup.
And is it like a mosquito bite kind of sting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of like that. Maybe like a tiny shot, like your flu shot kind of thing,
Okay.
but they don't like humans. Anyone who's sort of like listening to this and is like, oh no, I need to worry about sea lamprey, they don't go
Right.
to humans.
Well, what do they like?
They do eat a lot of trout. Salmon's a problem, so any
Oh,
sort
man.
of the bigger fish
All the
that
stuff
are
we
in
like.
the Great Lakes.
We need
Yep.
to get them eating on those round gobies, and then it'd be
Yeah.
like,
Oh, make invasive species fight.
Round one.
Yeah. Tournament of terrible champions.
So the lamprey's been around for a while. They're not a new invader. Do you have any idea, like, is it getting worse? Are their populations pretty stabilized? Are they, like, taking over even more? Are they just spreading out? Like, what's sort of the status with lampreys?
Yeah, so they're pretty stable now in some areas. It sort of depends on the area, but overall, it's been quite a success story because people have been using different kinds of traps, different chemicals to sort of control their population. So they've got it down, their population size down a lot. So it's really good. Now it's just sort of keeping it at this population size because, like, as you know, if you use chemicals too many times, they get used to it, then it stops working.
Man, invasive species. Bad. That's my position. Hot take.
So how do you play the sound for them? You have, like, waterproof speakers? Like, how do you...
You put
how do
cool Walkmans on them?
how do you actually do this?
It's actually quite hard to find speakers that, like, are willing to play sound that loud, like, underwater.
No
So we
kidding.
have two speakers, but they only go up so high. So one of the things that we were looking at for my experiment was we were like, okay, this is working okay, but what if we went even louder? But we actually couldn't find any speakers that could handle it because, like, the speakers are just like, you're gonna hurt yourself. Don't do this.
Yeah, it's a
we
safety
do have
issue.
speakers, but yeah.
They should have extra settings, like only go to 12 if you're playing this for lamprey. If this is for a human, 10's the limit, lamprey,
Yeah.
okay, lamprey settings.
If there was anyone swimming by during my experiment, like, I feel really bad for them, but
No, don't play this in a scuba zone.
Yeah, did you have to, so do you have to, like, scuba dive to, like, plant them at the bottom of water bodies?
oh, thankfully not. We just did it in rivers and streams because that's where they sort of move upstream to reproduce farther up. So we try to catch them right before they reproduce because it's impossible to just, like, put speakers everywhere in the Great Lakes
Right.
and just, you know, I don't know, AC/DC in the entire Great Lakes. So we focused on streams and rivers where we knew that the sea lamprey would be.
Nice.
Wow, can you imagine the Great Lakes just like hard rock radio station just like, oh, I want to hear some music. Just walk to the Great Lakes.
That's what the Muskokas are like, am I right? I don't know, I've never been. Very cool. So are you done with this project? This is what you did for your master's and now you're sort of moving on from the lamprey, Vicky?
Yeah, exactly. I had a good time, and I've got one chapter published, hoping to publish the other one. Because we also did an in-lab study to be like, oh, well, what is their actual behavior playing the sound, watching them with a camera? So now I'm hoping to move on to some other weird creature, hopefully, for a PhD.
Anything further in the nightmare category?
If I can find one, then I'll study it.
Amazing.
Yeah, you have to escalate.
Yeah,
it's hard
yeah.
to, you started at the top. That was your error, right? Can't get more nightmarish.
Big colossal squid.
Ooh, okay.
Oh,
there you
I
go.
would love to study that, yeah.
Play AC/DC for colossal squids.
It's mostly AC/DC marine
Yes.
research. Yeah.
Yes.
What if we went really deep in the water and played really loud sound? What would happen?
Yeah.
Please fund me.
I mean, I would approve that.
Funding
project
approved.
idea. Yeah, I'm curious. That's fun. So how did you get to, were you
Yeah.
personally interested in the lamprey, or it was just one of those situations where they're like, we need someone to study the lamprey, and you're like, cool, I'm not afraid of anything.
It actually started where someone was like, hey, have you heard of the hagfish? And I was like, no. So of course I started Googling that, and that thing like produces its own slime that
Yes.
just chokes anything that tries to chew it. Yeah. And they were like, I was like, that is cool. And people were like, yeah, it's cool, but it's like way down, like all the way in BC and also really far down in the water. And they were like, well, you know what's related to that? This other terrifying creature named the sea lamprey.
And that's way easier to get to.
Quite slimy as well, so.
But you'd have been studying the hagfish otherwise.
Oh yeah, if I could find someone.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's not an accident, I don't think, that all these kind of freaky looking things have less less people studying them. I wonder if it's like people are less drawn to them and or more it's hard to get funding for them.
Well, all the cute animals have been studied.
Yeah.
And now we're just left with the uggos.
I'm sorry, lampreys.
Whale research.
If the lampreys are out there listening.
I hate to objectify animals in this way, but they're...
But I mean, it's a thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's human psychology, right? We're drawn to the things that we're like, oh, this is adorable. Oh, no, this is a nightmare. I don't want to look at it. And we stay away from those.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess they get studied less. But they're as much a part of the ecosystem as anything else. And especially when they're invasive, they're hugely impactful.
Well, and Victoria mentioned lamprey have a taste for the best fish.
Right. Only the finest fish for the lamprey.
Sushi quality fish are what the lamprey go for. So how can a lamprey that's evolved to be in salty places, how does it just switcheroo? Like, not everything can just, be adapted to one salinity and just, that's why we have freshwater and marine fishes. Do you have any idea what about the lamprey physiologically makes it able to do that?
Yeah, so the sea lamprey that's actually native to the ocean, what they do is they actually go into freshwater streams to breed and then go back out to the sea, to just sort of live the rest of their lives. So the ones in the Great Lakes just were like, well, that seems like a lot of work. I'm just going to stick in fresh water for the whole time. Why would I bother doing that?
This water's great. Why am I going all the way out there?
Oh, man, if the salmon pick up on this and save themselves that dumb journey, why don't they learn?
Ooh, Great Lake salmon. Hey, there's an idea.
Get them in there.
Now we just have to get rid of the sea lamprey. They'll be great.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Have you ever thought about deliberately introducing things as a project, Victoria? Instead of fighting the invaders, just be the source of invasion.
Yeah, like what Vinny said, just pit invasive species against other invasive species. I like it.
Yeah.
Put them in a ring.
Mutual annihilation.
So now you work in a totally different lab. So now you're a lab manager in a different... So what does this lab work on? Yeah,
so we actually do... the project I'm working on right now in that lab is transport stress for special species that are endangered. So going from one scale of the scale to the other side of invasive to endangered. So yeah.
And now what's transport stress?
So basically, if you've got like the endangered fish and you're like, we've got a ton of them over there and we've got none of them over there, but that environment over there is perfect. We can just get them from the spot there's thousands of them to a spot that there's less and have them sort of do really well there, then we can sort of increase their populations. So by transporting them, we want to make sure that we don't accidentally kill them on the way of saving them.
That seems like a worthy project.
And are these aquatic species as well? What sorts of things are you moving around?
Yeah, so the red-side dace, which is here in Ontario, we sort of get them from other populations and try and move them where they used to be. So
interesting.
And how do you move I'm assuming there's like hundreds or thousands of these fish.
It's an Uber.
Not like one. How do you are they just in giant tanks and really big plastic bags, like you used to get goldfish?
Oh, babe, that's really cute.
Are you shooting them out of planes? How are you moving these fish?
I wish we had anything that cool. No, we have giant tanks in trucks, and then we have to make sure that there's like oxygen and the water's the right temperature. It's quite interesting moving from invasive species where like you could drop them on the ground and they'll be fine for half an hour, and then these guys, and it's like, if it's not the right temperature, I'm not going to last 5 minutes.
Prima donnas.
It's very true. I remember, so I did my PhD partially on the round goby, which is an invasive species here. And we were actually, as researchers working with them, it was the law that we had to kill anyone that we found. And I found it so hard because it'd be like, I know you're a bad guy, but like this feels like murder, in a way. It's like, shouldn't you just live?
But they're hard to kill. Yeah, that's the thing about these invasives. They're so hardy, whereas the delicate ones are the ones that go first.
Yeah, I actually had that problem with sea lamprey where like I got attached to them. Like I actually really like sea lamprey. But when it came time that the experiment was over and you're not allowed to keep those guys alive, it was really hard to kill them. So I got to the point where I was like, oh, I'm going to miss you guys for the best. Oh my God, why don't you just die already?
I like your choice of words saying you became attached to the sea lamprey.
Oh, yeah.
Now, did you have any good sea lamprey names?
Oh, sea lamprey names. Oh, I wish I thought of that.
Like Bitey?
I mostly just like, yeah, like number one, number two, Joe, Bob.
Right. And so now you're moving fish around, driving them like basically a fish taxi. Yeah, a fish Uber. Like I guess, and you're the lab manager for this. So what kind of equipment goes in this lab?
Oh, we've got the giant tanks that we keep them in, and then you have to keep track of temperature and oxygen. So we've got a whole bunch of readers of like any type of thing you can think of, salinity. And then right now we're just testing it. So we don't have like the really fancy trucks that people use to transport like thousands of them.
Okay.
Here we're just trying to get like a few of them from point A to point B and make sure they survive as best as we can. So we actually just have like a bunch of coolers and some duct tape and water.
So when you say giant tanks, how big are you talking?
Oh, they're like, you could probably go swimming in them, but like only in circles, small circles.
Okay. Wow. It's still pretty big. It's not like,
Yeah.
because when I think fish tank, I'm like, oh, I think home aquarium, like big. But these
yeah.
are big fish tanks.
More swimming pool, but
Right.
very cold. I wouldn't suggest.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
I only had one encounter with a sea lamprey. So I worked on the St. Lawrence River, and one time when I was actually helping someone else with their research, similarly to you, Victoria, one like jumped in the boat. It got in the boat
It
somehow.
just jumped in?
We didn't see it enter, but suddenly it was
snuck
in
in.
the boat. We were just like laying out traps.
He's like, hey, got any sushi?
And it was very alarming because it was like thrashing around, and none of us wanted to touch it to get it out of the boat. And it was like much smaller than I expected. It was only like
15 centimeters?
Yeah, 15 centimeters-ish. Enough to freak you out.
They
though.
can get really big,
Yeah.
but like they start out really cute, like just like size of your hand kind of thing, and you're like, oh, they're so cute. And then they like, if you wait a few years, they actually do get to the size of like baseball bats, and you're like, whoa, okay, not as cute.
Yeah, less more horrifying. What
Yeah.
fish do you eat at that point? A sturgeon? You're much bigger than all the other fish at that point.
Yeah, biggest ones they can find, and then just hang on.
Yikes. So how did you get into biology, Victoria? Were you always into biology as a kid? You're doing all this fishy stuff. Like, how did you get into this field of study?
Yeah, I mean, I remember as like, you know, when you're in kindergarten, people ask you like, what are you going to be? I was like ballerina. So you can tell I had no idea what I wanted to do then. But, and then in high school, you know, you'd have to do the career thing. And I started looking up like marine biologists and, you know, like the deep vent community, like with the tube worms. I saw that and I was like, I'm sold. That is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. So that's what I want to do.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
From there, it's just...
Is that still what you'd like to do, Victoria? Go like hydrothermal vent stuff?
I'm really attracted, or I'm attached to really weird species.
Yeah.
So if I can keep jumping from one to another, because I love sea lamprey, but like I'd really like to try something else.
Right.
So I would love to do deep sea stuff as well. Maybe not like dive down there because that seems kind of claustrophobic. But like you watch the videos and stuff, it's so cool.
Yeah, there's some crazy wild stuff down at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, especially because like you have whole ecosystems that are based away from the sun. Like that alone is so cool, right? They don't have photosynthesizers, which are the base of our food web, right? So they have chemosynthesizers that make food out of all sorts of toxic stuff to us.
But they love it.
They eat that.
They eat it up.
Eat that up, literally.
Yeah, and so if you could pick anything you wanted, what would you pick?
To study?
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
to study.
I probably would do like the colossal squid or something, like anything really deep down. Anything that sort of like is so far down that they start like losing their shape. Like, you know, like the blobfish.
Right.
Yeah.
All those weird stuff where you're like, are you sure that actually exists?
Right.
Like, I think that would be really cool. But trying to find any of those fish to study, like you
Yes.
find one, you're like, great, there's my sample size.
Right. It's hard to get down there. It's dark and it's
Well, there's
under
so
pressure.
much space, and the life is so dilute unless you're at like an actual hydrothermal vent
Right.
where you have a big concentrated community. Yeah, like you could study anglerfish your whole career, I imagine, and how often would you ever see one?
Yeah.
That's the tragedy. And so, why do you think you're attracted to all these weirdos, Victoria? Let's get into this. What do you think it is? You feel like they're left
I don't know.
behind?
Yeah, something psychologically wrong with me, maybe. I don't know.
Right with
I should
you.
probably
Yeah.
take some psych classes to look into that. But I I think it's sort of like knowing that not a lot of other people have looked into this
Mm.
and being like, wow, there's so many paths I can take with this creature to figure out like how it lives, why it does this kind of thing. And behavior is one of the most interesting things to me. So picking a weird fish and then figuring out why it behaves so weirdly is just really interesting
Yeah,
to
what's
me.
your deal, weirdo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess all these animals that live we don't see and like you say are hard to find, Katie. Like yeah, they're so mysterious and that's super interesting and it would super provoke my curiosity too.
Yeah, the weirdos. The forgotten ones deep undersea. What are they up to?
Yeah, what are they doing down there? So mysterious.
Where are they hiding? That'd be cool though if you get to go in one of those circle glass boat things that go deep in the ocean, you know?
All
Whatever
those
are
deep sea
called.
submarines.
Yep. Oh, I would love to do that, but the only thing is that you get into like one of those horror movie things where you're like, if I go too deep, am I gonna find something I don't want to find?
Now, Victoria, the last one didn't come back, so we're sending you down there to see what's up with that.
Yeah. What are they doing?
You love a mystery, right?
Yeah.
We got one for you.
Where
What happened to Bob?
Where this beacon?
Yeah. Maybe don't.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a lab manager now. Are you sort of looking at different labs? Like you're using this time to sort of see what your next steps might be?
Yep. Looking for a PhD, and hopefully I can become an academic sometime in the future. And then, the dream is to open my own lab where all we study are weird, freakish animals.
Oh, that would be amazing. Like now it's a really hot thing right now to do in biology labs that's who I follow on Twitter. To have like a lab like an icon, what do you call it? Like a graphic to be like
a logo?
Yeah, logo, lab logos. Yours would be badass, Victoria, with all these blobfish.
A blobfish with lamprey mouth.
Yeah, just rows and rows of teeth.
Yeah, that'd be it's
pretty badass.
Sort of tooth font.
Kind of goes with the metal theme.
Yes. Oh, that would be awesome.
You know what? Sea Lamprey is a pretty good metal band name.
Oh, it must be used. I have a friend who is a biologist who made for some contest a horror movie called Lampredator.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
Story with a lamprey that sort of took over a lab and ate everyone. Fiction, don't worry. Fiction, folks. This didn't happen.
Yeah, I can say that it did not happen to my lab. I'm going on record and saying that.
So when you're not in the lab, what kind of stuff do you get up to, Victoria?
Oh, that's a good question. When I'm not thinking about fish, I turn to plants. So it was sort of in my bio, and I was like, I don't know what to write in my bio. So I have like my house is covered in plants right now, even though it's like the dead of winter.
What kind of plants do you got going? Are they like
Yeah,
food plants or just decorative plants?
I have some decorative plants, but it's something in me is just like, no, you have to grow things that you can use in the future. So trying to grow some vegetables in the middle of winter. It's actually not going too bad.
Oh, wow.
Nice. What kind of vegetables are you growing in winter? And why aren't we doing this?
I'm just growing like really small ones right now, hoping that they'll survive to the spring and I can move them outside. Because I've got like the broccoli and the cherry tomato, and it's inside and it's very small.
Okay.
That's cool.
Wow, I didn't even think about trying that in winter.
And do you need like an indoor greenhouse of some kind, or are they just happy at room temperature?
Oh, I just try and grow them at room temperature. You're probably supposed to have like a grow lamp and large pots and all that stuff. I'm sort of like very low budget growing plants right now, but it's going well.
And you said you grow shiitake mushrooms too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so actually my family does that. We grow it on logs in the woods, but that's a summer thing. It's not going right now, but all you have to do is like put them in the log, leave them outside, and they start growing themselves, and we just collect them.
So you're basically like cultivating them.
Yeah.
So would you take like one shiitake mushroom, you stick it on a log, you come back, there's 3? Like what do you put on the log to grow a mushroom?
Yeah, we get the mycelium. We don't make our own mycelium yet, maybe in the future. And then you stick it in the logs, and you basically make the log look like it's got chicken pox, because you just kind of put plugs in everywhere. And then you wait about a year and they should start producing mushrooms, and they produce mushrooms for like the next 2 or 3 years.
That's incredible.
Wow. And does the log need to be like kind of like decaying or just like a fresh log?
You're supposed to like cut it down and leave it for a year, but I let my dad mostly do that because he likes getting a chainsaw and just, cutting down trees.
And why shiitake mushrooms? That's just a favorite one. Are they easier to grow? Do you grow other mushrooms? I don't know much about mushrooms.
You love mushrooms, though.
I love to eat them. I love the fruits of your labor, but I don't know how it happens.
Yeah, shiitake mushrooms is the easiest, I believe. We tried oyster, and those guys do not like being controlled. You say, hey, how about growing now? And they're like, nah, maybe later. So
you can't tell me what to do, man.
The emo teenagers of the mushroom world. The oyster mushroom.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Like, I know my grandparents were big into going, they had a forest behind their house. They would go and like harvest mushrooms. And my grandmother always had like this old wives' tale that to find out if a mushroom is poisonous or not, you had to like put it in a boiling pot with a penny. And if the penny like oxidized, it meant it was poisonous or not poisonous. I don't know. I'd be scared about mushrooms. I don't trust them. I don't want to go find them in the forest. I don't know if I'm going to poison myself.
Yeah, are you knowledgeable enough to go foraging for mushrooms?
Oh, I wish. That's sort of like one of the things I was looking up. But then you look it up and it's like, oh, is it slightly like green? Then it's like, this is poisonous. And does it have like one spot to the left? And you're like, then it's poisonous. And you go in the wild and it's like, all the mushrooms are growing just however they want. You're like, I can't tell.
Well, it's like that Into the Wild guy. You know, that guy who went to the bus in Alaska and he ended up accidentally poisoning himself? He had like a plant book and there's these two plants like virtually identical and one is super yummy and one is deathly poisonous. And guess what happened? He accidentally ate the deathly poisonous one. There's if you don't know... If you're an amateur in that world, it seems high risk.
Yeah, eating poisonous things does not seem like something you can be an amateur at. You just have to become professional immediately before you start. It's like juggling chainsaws. Like, well, you could juggle a chainsaw, but you have to be very good at it right away.
Start with something else first.
Yeah.
And you said you like classic movies, too. What are some classic movies you're into recently? Or your old faves?
All of the black and whites. I tried, or black and white movies. I try to watch as many of them as possible, so that like I'm ready for any trivia movie night where it's like movies. Yeah, bring it on. So like my favorite movie is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, but I've seen a bunch.
Tonight's movie night theme: movies from the 90s. Victorious.
No.
Screwed. No. 40s.
Interestingly enough, there is a horror movie like about sea lamprey, like a different one than you were talking about, Katie. But I haven't seen it, so I'm gonna have to add that to my list.
Oh,
for
man.
sure.
Well, we all have to add that to our, I'm sure, bad movie night. Let's be honest. It sounds like it's probably
it does sound pretty trashy.
A deliciously terrible film, but how have we not all seen that?
Yeah, no
in
kidding.
Preparation for this.
Yeah, we need to make a movie night for this.
Yes.
Lamprey tornadoes.
Yes, and Lamprey tornadoes. I was trying to make it.
No, Lamb Predator. You're not going to beat Lamb Predator.
No, it's really good. Yeah. Well, I tried.
Maybe Slam Prey.
Slam?
Like a wrestling lamprey.
Okay. Well, that'll be the film you produce, Vinny.
Slam Prey.
Well, Victoria, this has been a true delight. Thank you so much for being on our show. Best of luck with all your plants and your mushrooms and, of course, your endangered fish. And we hope to see you on National Geographic at the bottom of the ocean. Safe. Safely finding some weirdos.
Uneaten.
Thank you, guys. I had a fantastic time.
Awesome.
Take
care, Victoria. Wow.
Whoa.
That was very cool.
Sea lampreys.
I mean, you gotta study them.
What a wild animal.
They're important. Like, it's a very easy sell if you're in the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence River area. If you're like, this threatens things we eat.
Everyone's like, okay, we need to stop it, right?
Yeah, you had us at it eats trout.
So what about stuff that's threatening things that we don't eat? That's just running rampant. Yeah.
It is harder to get money.
People don't care as much, right? It's limited funding.
Funding is very limited for sort of ecology. Well, for everything, I'm sure. But, it's very hard to sell things that sound cool sometimes. Like even behavior right now in the heart of climate change concerns, it's hard to get money for. This would be cool to know, unless you can tie it to something that directly affects humans now, particularly the economy.
Wow, we're really a human-centric species.
Of course we are. I mean, even if you look at the species we know of existing, right, most of them are things that we interact with, we see, look like us, right, for the things we don't understand. Yeah. Well, cute because they look closer to us. That's
Is that what makes things cute?
100%. Big eyes, being sort of baby-like.
Oh, baby,
features.
human baby.
Yeah.
Things that look most like human babies.
We're just the products of our own evolution and adaptation.
We love human babies because we have to take care of them.
Can't get enough of those babies. And they can't get enough of our saliva.
All right, good segue.
I like how when you first heard that, you're like, is there some sort of baby saliva taste test involved? Like, you thought there was...
Yeah, I was like, how do the babies know what the saliva's doing?
Is this saliva or
But they just
apple
need
juice?
visual samples of people sharing saliva. That's
But
amazing.
they could tell when, like things where there's like hugs, for example, was less of a sign than a kiss on the cheek. Like there was clearly
mouth stuff.
Mouth stuff.
Exactly. Babies love mouth stuff. That's my new band name.
Yeah. Let's maybe not
All right,
have
fair.
that. I mean, we had a lot of great band names today, but that one.
All right, fine. Go back to C. Lamprey.
Yes, C. Lamprey.
Or Slamprey.
Slamprey.
It's ready for the mosh pit.
Well, we learned a lot today.
I did.
About baby spit.
Yeah.
About
Lunar regolith.
Lunar regolith. That's another metal name.
Lunar regolith.
And of course, lamprey.
Yeah.
I mean, don't discount the not traditionally attractive species.
Fair enough.
They matter too.
Yeah.
And so do you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you,
to
listeners.
Learn Real Good. How do people find us, Vinny?
If you're interested in following us on social media, you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at LRG Pod. That's LRG Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Go ahead.
I got this. And if you'd like to contact us to be a guest, or you know someone who might be a guest, you can send us an email to learnrealgoodpodcast@gmail.com. Learnrealgoodpodcast@gmail.com. Your email source for being a guest.
That was amazing that you remembered all that.
It's my job.
Yep, great work. Well, thank you, Vinny.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Victoria. And thank you for listening, folks. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.